What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and there's some reports out of some different topics that I want to talk about and discuss today. One of them is going to be, taking, obviously it's a super early look, but just taking a look as it stands right now at the Dolphins 2022 draft assets. What picks do they have for the 2022 draft? We'll take a look at that. We're also going to talk about Jaylen Waddle a little bit and his expectation for, contributions to the team. And then also a little bit about the Dolphins, pursuits of free agent running backs. So let's start with the 2022 Dolphins assets. So I'm going to read through this article from Kyle Krabs, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit. There are a whole lot of things that need to happen before the Miami Dolphins and the rest of the NFL shift their sights to the 2022 NFL draft. There's a full season to be played and endless stories to watch unfold. But for the Dolphins, the NFL draft has been a centerpiece of this year's annual plan for building a contender, and so the habit of looking forward and wondering what lies ahead will be one that dies hard for many Dolphins fans. But the 2022 process will help to throw some cold water on all of that enthusiasm, because if you stack up all of the NFL draft capital each team currently owns for 2022 and rank them from most to least, you'll have to wait a while before you find the Dolphins on the list. So in other words, he's saying that quantity wise, they don't really have that much. Although they do still have a decent amount of picks number wise, but we'll get to that because he actually lists the picks that they do have, and I want to talk about the specific picks that they have a little bit too. So let's continue on. And that's even after this weekend's trade of wide receiver Julio Jones to the Titans, which drops Tennessee behind Miami in the rankings of 2022 draft assets. Tankathon.com currently ranks the Dolphins 22nd overall in 2022 NFL draft capital, and the team is currently scheduled and or projected to own the following draft picks. So out of 32 teams, they're 22nd. So let's see, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So they do at least have one pick in all 7 rounds, and they do have a couple picks in 3 of the rounds. So I mean, it's not a lot. That's 10 picks altogether. And with the way that this organization trades away their draft capital, let's just say moves draft capital around, that could go up or it could go down. You don't know. But as of right now, they do have at least one pick in each of the 7 rounds and 2 picks in rounds 4, 5, and 6. So let's take a look at these. So in the first round, they have San Francisco's first round pick. And this was because of, the trade, one of the trades that they just did this year, trading back from 3 to 12 with San Francisco, right? Was that the trade? Yeah, I think so. They traded with the 49ers a couple times. Anyway, trading with the 49ers, one of the trades that they did, obviously they ended up with San Francisco's, because they moved up to pick number 3, and we got their pick. That's right, we got their pick from 2021. 2022. We received their first round pick. Now, when we traded back up to number 6, we ended up trading away that first round pick, or our first round pick from next year, and we kept the one from the 49ers. Okay, and so just real quick, that's why Jaylen Waddle costs 2 first round picks, because he cost the number 6th overall pick in the 2021 draft, the spot where we took him, and he also cost the 2022 first round pick that we traded away to the Eagles when we moved back up to 6. So just a side note, but it's a fact, Jaylen Waddle is worth, according to the Dolphins, 2 first round picks. But anyway, so interesting, side bit there. So let's think about that. Because, you're gonna think about where, when we're projecting ahead, you're gonna think about where those picks are possibly going to land, right? And so, you don't have your own pick now and you have the 49ers. So let's say the 49ers are good. Well, first of all, let's say that the season for the Dolphins turns out how I think it's gonna, and I think that the 49ers are actually going to bounce back and have a much better year because they're going to have, their entire team back, considering their entire team was like decimated with injuries. So let's say the Dolphins don't do well and the 49ers do well. That means that we have the 49ers pick, and we would be picking towards the back end of the first round, even though they were the team that did well. And we would they would have our first round pick, and since we weren't very good, and we would technically be picking in the upper, if they won 6 games, they'd be picking in the top 10, right? Most likely, right? So they would have our top 10 pick. So if that's how the season plays out, then that's actually a pretty shitty position for the Dolphins to be in. Not only did they get rid of their second first round pick, right? So if they didn't move back up to 6 to get Jaylen Waddle, then they could have at least gone into 2022 with San Francisco's pick and their own pick, right? Now, the only way, it would be somewhat kind of shitty for the Dolphins if they kept both picks is if both teams ended up doing really well, right? Like if the 49ers and the Dolphins both went to the playoffs, and if we had both of those picks, then both of those picks would be later in the first round. In this scenario, obviously, reality is they have our pick, we have their pick. So that's one potential scenario. Well, there is still the potential scenario that both teams actually end up playing really well, right? Because the expectations for the Dolphins are to make it to the playoffs and so on and so forth. And so, if both teams ended up playing well, then obviously both of those picks would still end up being towards the back end of the draft, or the first round rather. And then, it just kind of is what it is. Neither of us get a pick in the top 10 or whatever. But if the other scenario plays out like I think it's gonna, like I think the 49ers are gonna have a much better season. I don't know necessarily that they're gonna make it to the playoffs. I think they'll certainly be far more competitive in that conversation than they were last year. And I don't think the Dolphins are going to have a very good year. I think they're going to win, at most 6 games. And so if that does end up happening, if I get proven correct, then that's a super shitty situation for the Dolphins to be in, because now not only did they give away one of their first round picks, the 2 that they had, but then they gave away their pick, which would have in that situation been the higher of the 2. Now, there's also the flip of that situation. Let's say 49ers don't have a good season and the Dolphins do. Well, then that changes the conversation a bit, and then obviously it would flip the scenario, right? If the Dolphins have a good season, then the Dolphins pick would be, further down in the first round, and the 49ers would have it. And if the 49ers don't do well, then our pick via the 49ers would be in the upper portion of the first round. Now, of course, there is the fourth scenario. Both teams do shitty, and both of those picks end up being at the top end of the first round. But I think it's probably going to be one way. I think one team's going to... Anyway, I don't know. I personally think that the Dolphins are not going to have a good season, and the 49ers are. So that's where I think it's going to end up landing. But so that is, an interesting thing to keep an eye on for the future. Obviously, like I said, this is pretty far out, but obviously something, that will be kept in our minds as, that time comes back around, in a year from now. That will be a storyline at that time, depending on how it turns out. Right? Either we'll get to say, wow, the Dolphins ended up, doing great because Jaylen Waddle, turned out to be everything they hoped he is, and the offensive line took massive steps forward, and so did Tua, and the team did really well, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, there could be some good, good things to say about it, but there's also potential for some bad things there. So we just have to wait and see how things play out. In the second round, we still have our own selection. In the third round, though, the only pick that we have in the third round is San Francisco's compensatory pick. So, you know, we don't even get to pick. It's a compensatory selection, so we have to wait. We don't actually have a third round pick in the normal line of third round picks. The first 32 picks of the third round, we don't have one. All we have is San Francisco's compensatory pick. So, whatever. Then in the fourth round, we have our own selection. We also have one from the Steelers. In the fifth round, we have our own selection and a projected compensatory pick for losing Devon Godshaw. So we'll see how that plays out. It is a fifth rounder, so, you know, maybe it ends up being a sixth, maybe it ends up being a fourth. It depends on how that gets valued. Obviously, the season has to play out. His contribution to who's he on? The Patriots? I think he's with the Patriots. So his contribution to the Patriots will play into that, etc., etc. In the sixth round, we have our own selection and a pending selection from the New England Patriots because of the Isaiah Ford trade. It's pending because I think it was an undisclosed, undetermined pick or something like that. I don't know, whatever. And then we have one in the seventh round. We don't actually even have our own seventh round pick. We have the Titans pick that we got in the Isaiah Wilson trade. So, I mean, we only have 4 of our own picks, and then the rest of those 6 picks that we have as of right now either came from other teams or will be, you know, possibly a compensatory selection. So it is something, like I said, interesting to keep an eye on and to think about. You know, obviously way down the road, but somebody wrote an article about it and wanted to talk about it real quick. Because there were some things that I wanted to mention, and so I did. All right, this next one is an article from Bleacher Report. They go through 8 different players in the league who they believe will not live up to the hype in 2021. And so this is going to be about Jaylen Waddle because he is on their list. But real quick, I will go through the entire list and just tell you who the players are. The first one they listed is Bud Dupree, linebacker for the Tennessee Titans. They picked him up. Trey Hendrickson, defensive end for the Bengals. Let's see, Matt Judon, edge for the Patriots, was 3. Number 4 was New England tight end Hunter Henry. 5 was quarterback Zach Wilson for the New York Jets, so the first rookie. And then Kyle Pitts, they believe is going to have a quiet season as well for the Falcons, obviously tight end. And then Kansas City's Joe Thuney, offensive guard, who they picked up from the Patriots. And then last on the list, they have Jaylen Waddle, wide receiver from the Miami Dolphins. So so this is what they have to say. Massive expectations chase Jaylen Waddle to Miami. The Dolphins made him the 6th overall pick in the hopes he can be a key cog that helps the upward trajectory of Tua Tagovailoa. He's expected to not only produce big numbers, but downright feast while defenses worry about Devontae Parker and Will Fuller. Now, real quick, because they don't mention it here, but this is something that is important and needs to be added to the context. Obviously, he's a rookie, so that's going to play into his ability to contribute and at, whatever level he'll be able to contribute. He's also coming off an injury to his ankle, which he's, as per, all the reports and media, he's still not clearly all the way back from. The entire offense is learning an entirely new playbook, not just him. And so those things are obviously important context. And also, they are playing him, because we haven't gotten to games yet, and it is just OTAs to be fair, but so far through OTAs, they have been practicing him on special teams, and I expect them to use him on special teams. I think that will be an absolute mistake because I think that they're going to get him hurt by doing that, especially if he's not fully back from his ankle injury yet. I think that is going to be a massive mistake, but I expect them to make it. Because all of the data and all of the information that is available, every piece of it would indicate that they're going to do that. The things that they've said, part of the reason why they drafted the guy to begin with, and the fact that they've, to this point, been practicing him in that position. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Anyway, to continue on, he's expected to not... Oh, wait, I already said that. But it's never that cut and dry. Waddle put on a show while Alabama out-recruited everyone in college, but the NFL presents a more even playing field. Yeah, and obviously that goes into, you know, him being a rookie, has to adjust to the NFL, get used to NFL defenses and the caliber of players on the other side of the field, etc., etc. The presence of Parker and Fuller could prevent him from obtaining those big numbers early, not enable them to. Yeah, I mean, if they get more of the targets and Gesicki as well, right, we got a bunch of guys, so that is possible. That could prevent, even if he stayed healthy and ended up having a good season, he might not put up the gaudy numbers simply because, you know, some of those other guys got to eat too. There's also the matter of Tagovailoa, who one could effectively classify as a rookie going into next season. And I know Dolphins fans in particular will take exception to that, but it's true in a lot of ways. He's got 2 new offensive coordinators, a whole new playbook. Last year was a mess. A lot of the team's different. So, I mean, in some ways you can say that, right? Obviously not in other ways. He did play last year and so on and so forth. So, but in some ways you can say that. While he attempted 290 passes last year, Tagovailoa ultimately got in just 10 games, averaged 6.3 yards per attempt, and had his coaching staff yank him late in games. While reuniting Tagovailoa and Waddle is just another way to add a layer of hype, the fact they will both have to learn on the fly means the whiteout could come up short in his debut season compared to expectations. And look, again, that's one of my big issues with, like, you know, Dolphins fans and stuff right now is the level of expectation that they're putting on this shit. Even if you thought last year was phenomenal and they're really as good as that, you know, as you think they are, I mean, still, man, you just got to temper yourself because you're going to I'm telling you, Dolphins fans are setting themselves up for disaster and for massive heartbreak. All right, there is one more thing I want to talk about. Another report getting into the Dolphins, you know, and their interests in free agent running backs. So Miami Dolphins haven't made any serious pursuit towards signing a free agent running back. This is for those, you know, who are worried about the running back room. And to be honest, if look, I do like Gaskin, and I have liked him since they drafted him. I haven't been overall impressed with their drafts to begin with. I think they've reached on a lot of guys, take guys that are injury prone, and I think the draft classes overall are pretty terrible. But there are a couple guys, you know, Myles Gaskin being one of them, that do intrigue me and has intrigued me since the beginning. And I do think that overall this running back room could be just fine and could do what they need to do, but that's heavily relying on everybody else doing their job too. And I just think there are way too many risks being taken across this entire team. You know, and I mentioned it before, I don't think that this entire offensive line is going to take the step forward that they hope or be as good. Same thing with Tua. You're likely to have a rookie at right tackle, a rookie now quarterbacking your defense at safety. You know, so I have some serious concerns there. Anyway, the Miami Dolphins surprised fans and experts alike when they did not use any of their early 2020 NFL draft selections on a running back. After all, the team's rushing attack has left a lot to be desired in recent seasons. Despite not selecting a young ball carrier in the draft, the Dolphins have reportedly not tested the free agent market very much either. Look, at the end of the day, too, they clearly... But it's not just a New England philosophy, but this is a philosophy that is had in New England. So again, the narrative that Brian Flores is not trying to replicate the Patriots way just has no basis in reality whatsoever. Not a single bit. But it's clear that they do not value the running back position and expect to go with a running back by committee approach. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and that's something that, you know, a lot of teams do, but that is a philosophy that the New England Patriots have had, and they have a pretty strict, you know, we don't give a fuck about running backs, and, you know, we think we can fucking, right? So, you know, like, in other words, they're not going to go after big name free agents at running back. And they don't think it's worth taking a running back, you know, even in the 3rd round, right? So, or whatever. Anyway, so let's see. More good news for Myles Gaskin is the Dolphins haven't made any serious pursuit towards signing one of the free agents. This comes from Cameron Wolf. Even if the Dolphins had signed Johnson, who they did put a waiver wire claim in for, but I think the Eagles, who were higher on the list, were the ones that got him. He likely would not have joined the team as the presumptive starter for the upcoming season. Last year, he rushed the ball for just 52 times to 181 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Dolphins' lack of dedication to adding new rushers seems to indicate that Gaskin will be given every opportunity to claim the lead job. Last season, he rushed for 584 yards and 3 touchdowns on 142 attempts. He would likely have enjoyed a much stronger season had he not missed time due to injury and been put on the COVID-19 list. 2021 could be a breakout campaign for the young back. It seems the Dolphins have a lot of faith that it will be. I don't think it's quite so much that. I think that they do like what they have in Myles Gaskin, and it is absolutely true that if you extrapolated his production from the time he was on the field to the entire season, he certainly would have been an extremely productive back, even though, the offensive line wasn't particularly good, etc., etc. And so he could be, but I don't think that he's going, and I do also think that he is likely to be, quote unquote, the starter, number 1 on the depth chart. However, I think what you're going to see play out in practice is they're going to use the committee approach. They're going to use whoever their running backs are on the roster. I'm thinking that it's probably going to be, wow. For some reason, I just forgot Gaskin's name for a half a second. It's going to be Gaskin, Ahmed, Brown, Malcolm Brown, and Garrett Dokes at most, if they keep 4. I think they likely will keep 4, and I think it's probably going to be those guys, because with Gaskin and Ahmed, you have the quicker, shiftier kind of, back, and then the bigger, short yardage goal line backs come from the other 2. Obviously, Garrett Dokes is one of their draft picks. I mean, we'll see. The past 2 seasons, they have cut rookie players from their draft classes. So, they could do it again, and that would be a disturbing trend if they do, but it is possible. But he is also, a project player too. So, anyway, we'll have to see all that pans out. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope you guys appreciate my perspective. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comments section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. We'll see y'all soon. Fins up.